Hey, welcome everybody to what day is it? Oh man, it is the exciting day. It is amazing to be alive in these days. And now listen, we're going to go into some areas that may be a little bit difficult. And our guest today is Scott Townsend. He's going to be on in just a second. Oh, there he is already. Scott, great to see you.
Good to see you again, Tom.
We're going to be going some areas like I'm going to ask you some questions about AI. How is it deployed? We're going to get into the mark of the beast. So many concerning questions that people have. You wrote in here, we're going to be talking also about, I'm going to ask you about this, why the acceleration of AI is parabolic. And then a little bit about quantum computing.
Right.
So there is so much to cover. We're going to get to the mark of the beast in this because what's coming is disturbing. Man, if somebody doesn't know the Lord, it's going to be, it's very challenging, very troubling. I've watched a lot of AI information videos lately, read a lot about it lately, and Scott, it just looks troubling. Listen, we're going to go there in just a second, but before we do, everybody, I want to ask you to like and share this video. It helps us to be able to get the word out, and people need to be warned. So it's our opportunity to be able to do that. We'll do it however we possibly can. And if you don't have the app yet, the Hope for Our Times app, check it out. It's free to download the app. And not only is it free to download the app, we have the entire Bible. There's a Bible reading program on there along with events. The San Marcos Conference is coming up in San Diego, California, just in a few weeks. Scott is going to be joining me for the first time ever as a speaker. That's going to be terrific. So many things happening, but all of these things are on the app along with other resources that we have on there too. But with this, Scott, I'm going to start with this. And then we're going to go, I'm going to turn it over to your brain. Walk us through these things that you can. And help us all to be able to understand what in the world is really going on. Ezekiel chapter 33, beginning in verse 2, God says, Son of man, to Ezekiel, speak to the children of your people and say to them, when I bring the sword upon a land, and the people of the land take a man from their territory and make him their watchman, when he sees the sword coming upon the land, if he blows the trumpet and warns the people, then whoever hears the sound of the trumpet and does not take warning, if the sword comes and takes him away, his blood shall be on his own head. He heard the sound of the trumpet, but did not take the warning. His blood will be upon himself, but he who takes the warning will save his life. But if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet, and the people are not warned, and the sword comes and takes any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity, and his blood I will require at the watchman's hand. So you, son of man, I have made you a watchman for the house of Israel. Therefore, you shall hear the word from my mouth and warn them for me. That is a pretty powerful statement there. Obviously, God speaking to and through Ezekiel. Scott, I look at this and think, okay, we have an opportunity to warn people. That's what we do, a watchman. If we don't do it, we're guilty according to God. And God has called us to do this. And right now there really is an alarm that needs to be sounded, a warning that needs to go out. People need to be made aware. So Scott, let's just roll right into this. Well, real briefly, a little bit about yourself, then we're going to roll right into it.
Sure. My name is Scott Townsend. Thank you for having me on the show today, Tom. I'm the founder of I Am a Watchman Ministries, and also our team created the Rapture Kit at rapturekit.org, which has been featured a couple times on your show before. And let me tell you that as the founder of a ministry called I Am a Watchman.com, you can only imagine how seriously I take and my team takes the accountability and responsibility to be a watchman in these days. And I have to say, at times it could be a crushing weight. You know, it is a weight of accountability to make sure that we listen very carefully to what's happening in the world. We obviously have a very big capacity to ingest lots of information for what's going on in the world. And then we, do an analysis that would be the equivalent of being on the wall back in the old days, looking out in the distance and seeing things that become a threat. Well, today it's the same process. And there could be some dispute, Tom, between a calling of being a watchman versus the responsibility that all believers have to be a part of the watchman community. And that's an interesting debate, which we don't have time for right now. But I think at some level, each of us has a responsibility to watch and warn and to share the truth of the Word of God from a biblical worldview, okay? And so, yes, we take that very, very seriously. And as such, it informs why the watchman community are the ones that tend to push so hard. And because we know our time is short and there's opportunities that have to be taken now. And we cannot count on the fact that we all have the influence that we need to in the next, it could be the next day, month, year, whatever it is that the Lord tarries. But we have a limited amount of time.
Yep.
And as you've heard me say in the past, I also think as our responsibility doesn't end just because we get raptured. We pay it forward into the next generation of believers. Of course, this would be tribulation saints as we would know them today.
Amen. So well said. There's so many different things we could talk about today, but we've agreed this is most pressing. People need to be aware of it. We see what's going on in New York City with so many insane things they're doing. The Pride movement, the Satan march down the streets of New York City. Scott, you saw that picture, that comparison of Sodom and Gomorrah and just this giant rainbow flag going right down the middle of New York City. And you go, this is happening all over the Western world. The whole Budweiser sponsoring another Pride event up in Canada. You showed that to me. And just looking at that going, didn't Budweiser learn a lesson? Well, obviously not. I think there's obviously something else going on here. Perhaps it's because of the ESGs, but whatever it is. I mean, so many things. Then we have this whole thing with the UN saying there's only 7 years left to save the planet, basically. We've got to do it. We have to step up all of the climate laws and the rules for SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. We've got to do it now. We're going to force these things on everybody, and we're going to cram it down everybody's throat. We have that. We have digital currency. It's coming whether everybody likes it or not. However, in all of this, Scott, this is exceptionally pressing. Everybody I'm watching that's a tech person, everything I'm reading is saying, this is alarming and it's bad. There's a genie that's out of the bottle. It's a wicked genie and it ain't going back in, and it has to do with AI. And it's like every day this gets turned up another notch. So let's walk through this. We want to know some things. How is AI deployed? What about the mark of the beast? Why the acceleration, as you wrote, of AI is parabolic? I don't know where you want to start, Scott. There's so much to talk about here.
Well, I think the best thing to do, Tom, is just to do the best we can and to dive right in, because it's a complex topic. We'll try to break it down into chunks. And one of the motivations for me stepping into this part of our presentation today is because I hear a lot of confusion from people, watchmen, watchwomen, and people in the church, other people, between what's going on with this stuff. They have this vague sense of threat, almost like a noose is tightening around their neck a little bit, but they don't exactly understand the technologies. And what happens is a lot of these terms are getting flown around and they're commingling together into a kind of an indefinite fuzzy thing. Well, I'm trying to break down what the distinction is right now, today's purpose, between quantum, computing and neural net computing, which is AI based. And I'd like to start with a couple definitions. And some of the words may be technical here, Tom, but I think our audience can follow along with us. And I'm going to refer to my notes over here as well. A neural net, think of it as a computer-based version of the brain, literally our human brain. It has neurons, it has pathways of learning that it develops over time. And it has the ability to branch and to learn and grow. And in some cases, it malfunctions when we don't remember something, we can't recall it, et cetera, et cetera. But neural nets are designed to mimic the human brain. And when a baby grows up and starts learning language and what things are, the ABCs, what is a dog, what's a cat, things like that, it's developing and wiring those neurons in the brain. Well, some very smart, engineers back in the day, researchers decided that, if we want to make computers smart, we're going to mimic the human brain inside of a computer. And that's what they did, actually. And now we're beginning to see the fruit of 20 years worth of R&D, mostly at the university and governmental level, that's been poured into this. So by definition, a neural net, what powers the AI, its ability to think, it's not really thinking, Tom. It's just following the pathway of probability and predictive algorithms in order to arrive at a brain-like result, which it then reports on. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So given that type of development or deployment, however you want to call it, it will just continue to increase within its own ability.
That's right. And that's what makes the acceleration of learning and competency so stunning. And so you look at ChatGPT. Remember, we talked about that a couple months ago, and then we talked about GPT-4 and what Microsoft invested in OpenAI. And the amount of things that it can do and handle now is exploding. And the reason it can do that is because as it gets more and more training and more neural capacity, then it can just grow infinitely. And that's exactly what we're seeing. It gets applied to other industries. It learns other things like medicine or, law or programming or these other vertical areas of expertise.
Okay. So when it comes to quantum computing and the mark of the beast, I was talking with an individual the other day, and they said when you look at the entrance of the mark of the beast into the system of this world that we have with AI, that is where you have a system that it really will make it where nobody can escape from it. Why? Can you explain a little bit on that?
Sure. So let's talk about, what is a quantum computer? Because I think it's been my experience, Tom, that some people think that AI runs on a quantum computer, and that's not true. Quantum computers are completely exotic things. If you've ever seen one of the images of a quantum computer, and Google has several of them, I'm sure there's very limited number of these, okay? They're very, very expensive, very exotic. They're operated, for example, at temperatures at 0 Kelvin, which is like the same thing as saying, stick this supercomputer into space where it's freezing cold. You know what I'm saying? That cold, the coldness of it makes it superconducting, makes it much more efficient and less prone to error. That's why they submerge it in refrigerant, liquid nitrogen, for example. And if you pull it out of that, it would melt, because it just needs a very, very special environment. It's made mostly of gold and other exotic alloys, things that are really, really efficient at passing electrons through the material. So it's not normal. You cannot stick one of these into your house and run it. They're in labs and in special environments. So the difference, though, with quantum is that it is a compute system that for the first time in probably 60 years doesn't work on just a binary system. Binary meaning it's on or off, binary 2, 0, 1. That's the basic compute. The smallest unit of measure is a bit. It's on or off. In quantum computer, there's a third state. And that's what's unbelievable. They have figured out how to work the middle of that to it's called superimposition, where it can be both a 0 or a 1 for a limited amount of time. And so what sounds like science fiction, what sounds like what would that even be used for? It actually, that the ability for it to handle that extra dimension, and that's interesting that I would think of it from a layman's point of view as a dimensional. If something is 0 or 1 and then it can exist in between, to me, that sounds like a dimensional thing, doesn't it?
It does indeed.
So you have to ask yourself the question, what kind of technology is this really exploring here? Is it really interdimensional stuff? Because some of the researchers make statements that are fairly mind-blowing, like the guy that invented one of the D-Wave supercomputer platforms said that they're getting messages from another dimension and they're talking to demons, and they call their coders, demonologists. I mean, just unbelievable stuff is right on this very, very advanced part of physics and the physics world that allows them to do this. But let's set that aside, the supernatural side of it. What this offers companies and government institutions is the ability to do massive parallelism in computational sciences. So, for example, a engineering problem that would take 1,000 years to do on a typical server could take 1 minute on a supercomputer, on a quantum computer. So the scale of calculations is just unbelievable, and that's why they're all pursuing it so heavily. Interestingly, there are no real world applications right now that you could run using a quantum computer. Sure, it's a research thing right now, but you can't really transact anything with it. It's not real yet in application sense right now, but that will be changing in the future.
Okay, so I'm going to get back to this demon thing here in a minute, just in this whole different dimension. So opening up this possibility of entering into another dimension or communicating with these beings from another dimension, is you can do that because of this technology, is what you're saying. Is that right? Did I hear that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so
correct.
When I think of something like CERN, which is
you're right,
different
There's
from
parallels.
that, but yet, okay, this is just, I mean, this is something else. Okay, now, I mean, this is really wild. So we have this, it explains a lot when you start looking at the ability. When I put it together as a Bible prophecy teacher, I know that Satan has to cause the Antichrist to appear omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. He has to have these characters of God. So this would give him, the technology alone would give him that power. We also read about, when you look at the book of Revelation, clearly you have these demons that are possessing these individuals, but then when you take it to the level of technology that is involved, and you throw in these different things like CERN, and what is happening, these things are coming at such a rapid pace. It's like every day you wake up and you go, where are we going to be tomorrow? I mean, it really should cause everybody to say, hey, I need to be ready I need to be ready. I need to be spiritually ready, because technology alone is evident of the direction all of this is going, the mark of the beast and everything.
That's right. And so one thing that I set out to do and to prepare for our time today, Tom, is in my head, I always kind of thought of, it was kind of fuzzy to me as to where are these AI systems and these data centers and things like that, and what is really involved in the hardware side of it today. And so I'll point our audience to a keynote speech given by the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang. He's in Taiwan and Silicon Valley. And he gives a speech that is literally jaw-dropping and introduced some things to me, Tom, that kind of blew my mind in terms of scale and what it is that they're trying to do now. And he makes an excellent summary of the past. He says things like, it used to be that we would deploy a server that software would run on. Engineers and software people would communicate to that. The server would be responsible for communicating results back. And that paradigm was based on it kind of froze in place there. We just built bigger and bigger server clusters and things like that. But that has a finite Moore's law type of limit to it. You can't make the transistors run faster. And then what they did, especially 10 years ago, is they noticed that GPUs, graphic processing units, were capable of doing certain mathematical computations vastly faster than the general CPU that runs all the computers. Now, what it does is it gives software people the ability to offload, computationally dense things to these special chips. As a matter of fact, in your phone, have you ever wondered why, when Apple gives a keynote, when they introduce their next gen phones, why do they talk about CPU cores and GPU cores? Did you know that there's a ton of this type of technology baked into every phone? And so it is ubiquitous everywhere. The GPU and the CPU combine into one unit now. So just to give our audience just a small taste of the scale of this, a $10 million investment used to buy 960 servers, and it consumed 11 gigawatt hours of power. Now, I don't know what a gigawatt hour is, but it sounds like a lot to me. And it would provide enough compute infrastructure for one large language model. Okay. Today, in the new technology that was just introduced a couple weeks ago by NVIDIA, which is the leader in this, it's, by the way, the next $1 trillion company. I think it's top 5 now at this point. Your $10 million investment that you have can buy 48 of these GPU servers and take essentially 3.5 times less, power. So it could run 44 language models now. So a 44 increase in AI capability for a third of the power. And you could begin to see the scale of, how fast the hardware side of this is going. But one more point before I start transitioning over to the mark and what all this means, Tom. I learned something important. I learned about a very big change in how AI is transformational across the entire technical stack of all businesses, governments, institutions, et cetera, military, everything. And that is, you don't really deploy these servers anymore. What the new concept of a computer is actually a data center, like the big server farms, the big, buildings that you see across the United States in different regions. And a data center contains everything you need for the fiber optic links between the networking in and out of the building, so it can talk to the world. So it's got all the servers, all the NICs, the network interface cards. It's got all the RAM, the memory. It has all the storage capability there. So it's not like you deploy a server anymore and engineers deploy to the server. No. Right now, the way they're doing it, Tom, is think of it like an atomic unit where they just drop a data center in and everything is interoperable now. And guess who the first 3 companies are that are using this new infrastructure? Google, Microsoft, and Meta. They're the first 3.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. And so what we are going to see, when you can make it deployable as an entire ecosystem unit, I think its ability to scale and replicate with additional data centers, probably all over the world, the probability of that happening in the next few years is probably extremely high, because consider this, that there's now an AI operating system that they have invented with their partners. And right now, it controls all aspects of what is needed in order to deliver this type of compute power. And so he's concluding with his forward-looking statements from his keynote that they can deploy, every corporation will basically have their own AI department, if you will, that will be training on its own data, its own customers, its own manufacturing, supply chain problems, how to optimize, how to increase profits, how to study competitors, how to tear down a competitor's product and learn other things, reverse engineering some things, et cetera, et cetera. And so you see, this is going to be absolutely everywhere. And I am positive that the banking system, the IMF, the WHO, the World Economic Forum, all of these key actors that continue to pursue a globalist agenda are probably powered by this type of thinking process, okay? They may not have deployed it yet, but they're considering it very strongly, I imagine.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. I'm going to ask you, how dangerous is AI? And I'll give a couple of scenarios and then work to the mark of the beast, and then we'll be taking questions here in just a couple of minutes too. But so watching, reading, everything I can about this, from what I understand, just where it is now, or maybe as of a year ago, you could probably fill in the blanks here. With AI, a child's voice, let's say you have a 10-year-old son, or let's go older than that. Let's go an 18-year-old son. You have an 18-year-old son, and you have 3 seconds of your 18-year-old's voice. This AI does, whatever it is. How that audio was captured, whatever. I mean, it can be captured through just about anything now. Okay, this captured 3 seconds of it. So you could receive a phone call from AI, and it completely can mimic your son, where you won't even be able to you won't even know it's not your son. They'll be able to have a conversation with you because it's able to enter into the human world with conversations, personalities, characteristics, and everything. So it can have a conversation with you, completely fooling you into thinking it's your son. And then with that, the AI can say, hey, Dad, I lost my such and such, my social security number. Can you just give it to me? You think it's your son. Or, hey, can you come and meet me somewhere over here? I need a ride, where the whole time it's a setup to get your son for safety, and you're being set up. But I mean, the different scenarios I hear are alarming. And
yes,
from what I understand, this technology is already here.
It is, Tom. And the thing is that the impersonation, and remember when we talked about the Microsoft investment into OpenAI, the $10 billion we talked about a couple of months ago, one of the top findings of the Microsoft research team that did that white paper was it's exceptionally good at, deceptive narrative, and can write it in a way that shows logic and a supporting evidence for that. So no wonder, if you take the Matthew 24 warning from the Lord about, be not deceived, you can probably start to include this. Now we're beginning to see this. Is this one of the things in Daniel that was obscured from our understanding at the time, but now is becoming increasingly focused? Will AI be part of that deceiving thing that will entrap people? And I can almost assure you that it will happen at some point. Whether we see it or not is a different matter, Tom. But I think that the implications of these technologies for AI is very, very critical. And let me just spend a second I've been doing a lot of really deep thinking about what role does a neural net AI play in the mark versus a quantum computer in the mark. And I think I've got a hypothesis that time will either prove or disprove, but I think the strengths of quantum computing are this massive parallelism, looking for patterns and looking for, going through large amounts of data and computing it at a very fast scale, researching, predicting, things like that. AI, on the other hand, is more about the language part of it, in terms of, like you said, being able to output complete thoughts and structure, talking to people. The chatbots that you use today on banks, et cetera, they are powered often by a version of ML, machine learning, and NLP, which is natural language processing. So I think that what's going to happen here is that it will be the fusion of the two eventually that will be the really difficult part. When a quantum computer operates at its scale and can control the AI part of it, I think that's going to be what is a chokehold on humanity at that point. I don't see an escape. A quantum computer can predict, given enough learning information, which you can get from the AI neural net, see this, is this person likely to become a Christian? Are they looking at something on the internet that could suggest that maybe they're learning about Christ, that they've heard the gospel, and what do they do about it? Maybe they send a goon squad out to interrogate and to make sure that that gets stopped right away. Or if someone comes to faith, they are presented and they don't have the mark, they will be singled out for processing in some center somewhere and then forced to submit. And I pray for future saints to endure that and to understand what is at stake and to make the right decision to come to faith in Jesus Christ and to recognize that the ultimate price will have to be paid here on earth, but there is a future glory awaiting them if they can prevail through that.
It's going to be exceptionally difficult when it comes down to that future time when all of this develops into the mark of the beast. I'm going to take questions, but while people are getting ready to send in their questions, Scott, will you connect for us your thoughts on, you look at the mark of the beast, the direction everything is going. I think we are literally watching the birth of the beast system right now. It's all coming into place. And so we're experiencing it with the technology, the digital currency, the UN pushing their whole, the SDGs, the climate laws.
The governance laws, right?
Governance laws. These are all working together. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But so as you start developing those thoughts, Scott, just real quick, I want to talk to everybody. Hey, listen, get ready to send in your questions right now. Put the word question in all caps. And also, just so you know, the live registration is also open right now for San Marcos, San Diego, California. The live stream is. And if you want to join us in person, Scott's going to be there. Billy Crone, Brandon Holthouse, Don Perkins. Don will be joining me tomorrow right here, by the way. John Holler's also going to be with me this week. John Holler will be at the conference, and Greg Denham's going to be at the conference. It's going to be a fantastic time, so I hope that you can join us. If not in person, you can do live stream registration. And Scott, people want to get a hold of you. I Am a Watchman, we have that already noted, so people can go to, we have Rapture Kit. Do you want to have?
Yeah, rapturekit.org. Okay. Contact us is the most used one that we have right now.
Okay.
So to answer the other question, Tom, I think that not only are we close to the global framework needed to do all these things. Remember, there are data centers like this already in operation. We know that Microsoft, Google, and Meta already have them and are working on them. And so you would have to ask yourself, do we see the evidence of controlling mechanisms inside of banking policies? Well, yes, we do. Do we see a desire to deprecate cash? And yes, we do. Do we see a chokehold on crypto? Anything that would potentially compete with a one world global currency? Well, yes, we do. Look at the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and its nonsense of failing to provide regulatory clarity over crypto and what is considered a security or an asset or just a utility token. Well, that all plays into this. They're slow walking a lot of these decisions so that they can have additional time to be implementing in the background. IMF just made a statement that they will not allow national currencies anymore. That's something that's brand new. We got to process that, Tom, the Watchman community, because I think they just dropped a gauntlet that said we are going to control this. And that's a surprise that we saw something that strongly worded today. So I think that it's here, and I have to disclose that I think it's shocking that we see so many of these stage setting and precursor events right now, and yet we're still here. And it just speaks to the love and concern the Lord has to make sure that everyone has an opportunity before his wrath is poured out after the rapture. And I have to say that if anybody in our audience is doubting about the veracity of what they're seeing in the world, if you are confused about what does this all mean, you must pay attention. We are very, very serious when we say that our only hope is Jesus right now. It's not in a political savior. It is not in a government, a philosophy. Wealth won't protect you from these things because it says that even the rich will be subject to these laws. So absolutely, everyone will be impacted. And it's far better to go through the process of accepting the Lord now and knowing that our future is secure in him. The Holy Spirit is basically a seal of our redemptive, the promise of our redemption. If the rapture happens and you're left behind, then the amount of pressure, Tom, that people will have to go through to fight off, the control mechanisms of the Antichrist system as it's being polished and set up for good, then it's going to be very, very difficult to resist that and to prevail through it.
Yeah. And Satan knows he has to get everybody on the side that he possibly can. Hence, anybody that's not going to be part of the system and willingly go along with it is going to be eliminated. As we read the book of Revelation, we understand exactly how that is going to work. Interesting about the IMF, Scott, I also read where they said this decision of theirs is irreversible. And they said that no nation will be able to have its own digital currency because it won't work if that happens. They know it. And they also presented in the package, hey, this is for your own good. It's for the global. In fact, everybody, if you pay attention to the statements, you'll constantly hear from these organizations, it's for the global common good. The Pope says it, the Rick Warrens of the world say it, and then all these giant corporations and the UNs, the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, the IMF, they all have the same talking points. It's for the global common good. And
that's why, the noose is tightening, Tom, and the church is sleeping by and large, and people don't care. They're too distracted. They're not paying attention to what's happening, and the threat level continues to go up. And at the right moment, when the Lord decides to allow this next step, it's going to be a devastating blow. I don't think we'll recognize our country when that part of the restraining hand of the Lord is withdrawn and the next steps are taken.
Totally. I mean, right now, these things are being restrained. Imagine when the first seal is loosed. I was with Dennis Swick the other day on his channel, and he was talking about some of these things. And you look at Matthew chapter 24, where Jesus says in the Olivet Discourse, unless those days were shortened, no flesh could be saved. And, Scott, up until the whole AI thing started getting some legs for knowledge like somebody like me, you're way ahead of the game. But I always looked at nuclear war, this type of thing. Man's going to destroy himself in so many different ways. But now you look at AI and technology, and then you throw in quantum computing that you were talking about earlier. There is no escape from the system. In fact, when you look at Revelation chapter 13, it's very clear. The devil is given power over the saints during that time.
Yes.
And And the survival of the saints during that time is the Revelation 12, the blood of the Lamb, the word of their testimony, and they do not love their lives unto death. It is going to be so difficult, so difficult. Man, can't encourage people enough now to surrender their life to Jesus Christ.
And some people just don't understand, Tom. They don't quite understand yet. So for all the audience listening that are concerned about loved ones, I just urge you to continue praying for a breakthrough and pray for the Lord to make a way. And that includes family members in my life too. So it's very, very personal. And it's not a joke, and people kind of dismiss it right now. But I think the Lord is shaking the world right now and just trying to get people's attention. And I think more and more dominoes will continue to tip over because we're not reacting correctly yet as the body of Christ. I don't think the church is, as I said before, largely not paying attention. But I think that there is a collision of worldviews coming, and the Lord will win this collision.
Yep.
It's already been foretold. It's already done. He's finished it all at the cross. And we just have to know, now is the time to be taking action. It's too late, when you can't reach out to a loved one on your way up in the clouds. You know what I'm saying, Tom?
Amen.
It's too late. Like, give me another 30 seconds. I meant to call this person. No. Yeah. It's too late. We have to do it now. Please hear the urgency in our tone.
Amen. The time is so short. I look at things, Scott, and from my perspective as a pastor, it just seems like most churches are sleeping. They're just really, so many pastors are unwilling to even just look at the reality of what's going on. People sitting in their pews are saying, hey, something's not right. And the pastor just gets up on Sunday and just gives his happy sermon as if everything is okay. It's like he doesn't want to upset anybody or something like that. Look, there's an elephant in the room, and this elephant in the room is not good. And
that's right.
We need to be warning people. And going back to Ezekiel chapter 33, Scott, I so appreciate you from when we first met and your desire for a rapture kit, and I am a watchman, and that was the passage you brought up to me that we talked about. The very first time we did any film together. And we are, ladies and gentlemen, we are watchmen, watchwomen. Some of us are called to different positions, no doubt, but the time is short. Like you, Scott, the urgency of the matter, we're here. It's now. We don't know how much longer, but man, we need to be really warning people about what is coming, because it's all, like you said, the noose is tightening. It's rapidly coming. Micah asks this question. He says, are there any politicians that are aware of this that are on our side? I know there are some, but when I look at this, Scott, to go another direction, I think most politicians are kind of clueless on AI and what's really coming. They're not paying attention to it. They're too busy fighting in politics to really have a clue about what is coming, even upon their own head.
That's true. And you can tell that when you oversee a C-SPAN meeting of these decision makers in Congress, et cetera, and they're asking for simple definitions, and the subject matter expert is sitting there, like the founder of OpenAI, for example, Sam Altman, and he has to define what AI is. Well, you already know that's a problem. Yeah. No one really understands that the regulatory framework is so far behind. There is no protection or certification or governance around what constitutes a safe AI model. And look, it's not going to be done. I can tell you, read Revelation 13, work backwards. You know that the regulatory framework is never going to make it in there because it sets out to harm people, yep. to basically martyr people and to put them into a logical prison where they can't do anything anymore. It's going to be horrible.
It is. Speaking of regulatory environment, check this out. This is from this whole the UN thing. We got 7 years left, the whole SDGs, right? This is what they say, and in fact, I'm going to do a message on it this week. This SDGs by 2030, the whole climate things, will require, get this, 3 things, Scott: creating new regulatory environments. That's very bad. We know that's very bad. New regulatory environments, deploying new technologies. This is about, folks, this is about implementing this part of the beast system, the whole climate control. A new regulatory environment, creating a new one can't be good. Deploying new technologies, they're thinking we can deploy AI. We can deploy this to bring about our restrictions, our global government. And get a load of this one, Scott, you probably saw it, mobilizing a wide range of actors to advance disruptive change. So all of these things are included with this whole system that is being developed. Scott, I have a little bit of a problem. Go ahead.
You know what? I just want to let the audience know that whenever you're in technology and systems, what you say publicly is already old news. So in the back room, they've already done it. They're already deploying it. They're working on integrations with their key partners. They're testing stuff right now. They're scaling it. And so I just don't buy that this is still a future event. I think a lot of it is well underway at this point. And you know what, Tom? I have a challenge for you here.
Yeah.
Interested in your thoughts here. I think the IMF, mandate to control all digital currencies is actually another way of accelerating the 2030 agenda, period. I think they believe they're well ahead of schedule. And this IMF dictate removes the layer of all the nations having their own CBDCs. Think about Absolutely. How that would accelerate everything. And so I look at this as the IMF pouring fuel on this fire. And it's going to be very interesting in the next days and weeks to see what the reaction is to what the IMF said.
Well, just to prove your point on this, they've already decided this, it's already in the works. It was in 2015 that the Pope, in his encyclical, 2015, what's that, 8 years ago, he said it's for a global common good, and then he said there will be no national sovereignties. In other words, right. You won't have a country like the United States of America. That was in 2015. We are going that direction. It was already planned. Agenda 2030 was the update of Agenda 21. Agenda 21 was from, 1993 or something like that? It was somewhere in the 90s. Agenda 2030 is from 2015 also. In Agenda 2030, they said all these things in 2015. So the proof is already there. And you're right, when you read this in this document, no, these decisions were already made. In the TPP, Scott, there is, they wrote in language to place in charge the commission. The commission of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the purpose of it was to oversee basically everything, where you can live, what's determined to be a wetland, what's not, the kind of food you can eat. The TP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, a trade partnership, talking about gender equality, homosexuality, homeschooling, the whole bit. That was the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So this stuff was way out there, and now we're just starting to see the effects of it. Yeah,
it's truly shocking, Tom, that we're seeing this today.
Yeah, it is. Okay, now what's a bummer is we're out of time. I'm supposed to be done in 40 minutes now, and I'm having a really hard time with this. But Scott, I can't wait to see you in a few weeks in San Diego. At San Marcos Conference. Again, everybody, you can join us. Can't be in person. In person, we have food truck Friday night, food truck Saturday for lunch. It's all included in registration. If not, you can live stream the event. It's going to be terrific. And quite frankly, everybody needs to be warned. Listen, we need the truth. We need the tools, and we plan to give them. We'll give you the truth, and we're going to give you the tools at that conference. So everything we can possibly do to get the word out, to be watchmen on the wall, giving that warning and assisting you guys that. So I hope that you can join us in person or online with the live stream. Scott, you have closing thoughts?
My subject at the conference will be the Internet of Bodies, because that is a very, very intriguing concept having to do with loss of privacy, as Noel Harari keeps saying, and the invasiveness of the fourth industrial revolution. And what does it actually mean? What are the components of that? So I'm really looking forward to bringing that to an audience there.
It's going to be terrific, Scott. I can't wait to see you. Just a few weeks away. Listen, thank you everybody for joining me. Don Perkins is with me tomorrow, and John Haller is going to be joining me sometime on Wednesday. I don't know exactly when yet, and I have a lot to talk to you about on Thursday regarding this whole 7 years with the UN and the world coming to an end and all of that other stuff. So listen, we live in amazing days, but let's be about our Father's business, occupying until He comes, telling people about the hope in Jesus Christ, being watchmen, being watchwomen on the wall, because we're soon going to be going up, and it's not going to be pretty here on this planet. God bless you guys. See you tomorrow.